I had my stuff here. Thank you for waiting.
Good evening. The meeting of the Monroe Township Board of Education will come to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
We have a roll call, Mr. Gorski.
Ms. Antelis. Ms. Arminio.
Here.
Mr. Braverman.
Here.
Mr. Chiarella.
Here.
Mr. Kaufman.
Here.
Mrs. Kolopanowicz.
Here.
Mr. Rothstein.
Here.
Mr. Poi.
Here.
Mr. Prezioso.
Here.
Mr. Zarneski.
Here.
Madam Board President, you have a quorum this evening.
Thank you. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place thereof posted November 14th, 2014, 1 at all schools, 2 Home News Tribune, 3 Cranberry Press, and 4 filed with the clerk of the municipality. And before we move further on with the agenda, I'd just like to, on behalf of the Board of Education, like to congratulate our newly elected Board of Education members, Ms. Jill DeMayo, I don't know if Jill is here or not, and Mr. Stephen Ryback. We look forward to your joining our board in January and for a good year. So at this time, we will go to our student board members' reports. Students?
Good evening, everyone. Just to start off tonight, Mill Lake School recently conducted a week of respect within their school, and they thought the week was very productive, and children learned how to treat others with kindness and respect during the school day. They learned what's unkind and how not to act like a bully to other students, and the principal was very pleased with the climate at Mill Lake during the week. At the high school, select DECA members will be attending a leadership and entrepreneurship conference in Washington, D.C. this weekend, and they will attend workshops and compete in real-life business situations. MTH DECA is also proud to say that they have raised $3,000 to date for the Wounded Warrior Project and still are going to continue to fundraise. And also DECA is hosting a hypnotist show on Monday the 24th at 7 o'clock at the high school's Performing Arts Center, and all the community is encouraged to come out and enjoy the great show. And all the proceeds are going to benefit the Seeing Eye Inc., which is hosted out of Morristown, New Jersey. Monroe Township High School's own Mikey Nichols was recently on the hit sports talk show Boomer and Carton, so if you'd like to go online and check that out, he was very inspirational and well received. And then the Monroe Township High School Footlights Club will be hosting a cabaret night including great songs from Broadway on December 11th at 7 o'clock p.m. in the high school commons. Tickets are $5 and the community is encouraged to come out and enjoy the great show.
The Monroe Township High School's National Honor Society recently concluded a Thanksgiving food drive with the Rise Food Banks of New Jersey. The Drama Club had also recently put on a showcase as a fundraiser event as well. First marking period has recently ended for students, and finally at the last meeting, I had mentioned the MTHS FBLA's Haunted High School fundraiser, in which the MTHS Future Business Leaders of America, in conjunction with some of the other school clubs, organized an event for the younger children in the district to benefit the Mama Mare Breast Cancer Foundation, and I'm happy to report that we have raised just over $1,400 in support of Breast Cancer Awareness Month, and the intent is to continue the event again next year.
Thank you, very good. Before we move on with the agenda, I think maybe the public has noticed we have a new face at the table today, and I'm sorry that I forgot to introduce you. Miss Dr. Dory Alvick who is our new assistant superintendent of schools. We're very pleased to have her in place, and we're glad to have you here. Thank you.
Congratulations, Dory.
Yes. Student recognition essay contest?
That administrator's not here tonight, so if we can just postpone that.
Okay, no problem. So then we will go to the presentation of the 2013-2014 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. Mr. Gorski?
Thank you, Madam Board President. I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Jerry Stankowitz, CPA from Samuel Klein and Company, who is engaged by the board to be the independent auditor as required by statute. Mr. Stankowitz?
Thank you, Michael. Members of the board and the members of the public, here tonight to present to the board and the public the annual comprehensive financial report of the district's operations for the fiscal year ended June 30th, 2014. This is an annual document. It's an annual event. However, I don't look at it as just being here for 1 or 2 months in the fall to audit the records. I view, and I was trained as an auditor, that an audit is a year-round event. It's important to be available to the client to help them through any problems or to discuss any potential concerns that they have that may have audit impact because of a decision they may or may not make. So we actually started this audit actually a year ago when we came in and we audited the application for state school aid, as well as the free and reduced applications and the special education, the IEPs. So we kind of start off early on in the process and do a rather extensive audit, maybe more so than our competitors. I'm not here to boast or anything, but I just was trained from an old practitioner that, you know, trained me to go over and above what needed to be done and sort of exceed the minimum standards. And that's actually my choice. The other thing that we do during the year is we do testing. The root word of audit is sample audition. So we test a lot of transactions. In the area of payroll, we run a sample from the beginning of the year to the end of the year. We select certain transactions, and it's not certain ones, it's statistically determined. We can't discriminate. If that number pops up, we have to test that item. So we will test payroll for the fact that A, is the payroll properly authorized, and that means by the board, or is it in accordance with the contract, the union contract or the bargaining contracts. We test to make sure the withholdings are proper. We test to see, especially in this era, that the health benefits withholdings are proper. We make sure that the payroll taxes are paid timely. We also want to note, though, that our payroll taxes are actually wired into the to the government, both governments, the state and the federal, and that those wire transactions, just so you know, to keep you informed, is those transactions are actually looked at by 2 sets of eyes. No one has unilateral authority over that in this district. So we test in the area of payroll. We test also to make sure that the payroll taxes are paid, not that they're paid, but they're also paid timely. Okay, the government, the federal government is not so forgiving anymore about being a little tardy or a little late, so we check in that area too. We also will run not only our normal statistical sample, but we will run what we call a block sample or a random sample of a haphazard sample. We'll just pick a certain payroll and look at the items there regardless of whether it's a sample or not. We're just trying to spot check things. We'll do that for base pay for employees. It's over and above what we normally do. We do that for part-timers and overtimers. There's a lot in this district of extra compensation that goes through to the teachers and or the custodial maintenance department. It's extra pay, okay? And it's got to be properly documented, and it is. There's various levels of approvals that it goes through before it hits the payroll department, who then just pays it, and they are, I think, pumping out 20 pays a year of about 1,100 paychecks, which is pretty heavy action, and they do a pretty good job, and I want to compliment and thank them for that, and that leads to, the fact that we have, a good CAFRA, a good opinion here. One of the other things we do is we test expenditures. Again, we run a sample from July 1 to June 30th. Okay, but the audit just doesn't end at June 30th. We look at expenditures from July 1 of the subsequent year, right to the date that we issue the report, okay, to make sure that there's nothing that's done there that's improper, that should have been thrown back to the prior year, okay? So that's what we look for. So the bills here in this district are cut off properly, and that's of major importance because Mr. Gorski's office provides the board with financial information. You need to have a comfort level that when you're looking at something, you know that, A, it's cut off properly, that you're getting 1 year's worth of bills to look at, not 2 or not 14 months when it should only be charged 12 months of either electric or health benefits or gas or even legal, which is actually is no more. But so we look at that stuff. What else we look at is we look to see that all the documentation was proper and to make sure that everything is supported by an invoice. We also make sure it was properly approved by the internal management, that no one's buying something and then saying, here, guys, pay it now. Well, we can't have that. Okay, that's not supposed to be. The other thing that we have, too, is that we're in compliance with the public school contracts law. We do a rather extensive test and engage a lot of individuals within the district in terms of inquiring from them, okay, well, we bought this, where's the documentation, where's the quotes, where's the bids? We're fortunate in New Jersey to have some other school districts that have created a buying co-op whereby they group several school districts together. In fact, it's the Middlesex Regional Ed Services Commission. What they do is they'll group all the needs of a bunch of districts for certain things. It might be pencils, it might be paper, it might be, lime or whatever, and they go to bid. They'll determine how much they need to meet their support group, and they'll bid it. So although we're not bidding it, someone else is, okay? And I believe one of the items that's in the MD&A is that there was a significant savings by using these co-ops. We could bid it on our own, but by doing that, that increases the burden on the administration to write specifications and legal notices and legal review and all that stuff. So having these co-ops was a good thing. So we're in compliance with the public school contracts law, we're in compliance with proper documentation, and we're in compliance with cutting the expenditures off properly. But also, too, we will run a statistical sample, but we will also run samples that are based on dollar levels. We'll look at every bill over X amount of dollars. We'll also just may grab one entire month's bills and flip through them and make sure that everything looks pretty good. It's not as extensive as our sample, because when we do our samples, both for payroll and for expenditures, we have these, they're called attributes. And it's in other words, is this on file? Is this here? Is this here? It's a series of attributes that we test. And our testing has revealed really no problems, no errors. That's been the case here. I believe the finance office does a pretty good job in making sure that everything flows through properly. No one wants to lose their job for making a silly mistake or missing or not having a certain piece of paper on file. So basically, yeah, we go and we do, I think, a rather extensive job on reviewing both payroll as well as expenditures. In this town, too, obviously there's payroll, there's expenditures, and there's revenue. And the bulk of your revenue is quite easily auditable. It's tax levy, it's state aid, and it's grants. Very easy to audit. We do also look at your grants in terms of you have Title I, Title II, IDEA. You don't have a lot of it compared to most places, but we do look at to make sure that you're in compliance with the accounting requirements for those grants. You also run a food service fund, which is sort of heavily regulated by the government, where you get reimbursements based on meals, free meals, reduced meals, and paid meals. We monitor and we look at your food service vendor. We look at their bills. And we look at their payroll. We do little tests on that. They're not our employees, but we take a look at it anyway to make sure that we're not getting billed unfairly for anything. And I think that whole situation is a very nice situation there. It's a good thing not having to worry about running a food service operation on your own. You have professional help there. So we found that to be a very good result as well. That's a pretty big operation. So we also look at student activities funds. We don't do as extensive a job as you might think on those. We rely that it's being audited internally before it gets to us. In the auditing profession and in the accounting profession and even in large corporations, the system is supposed to be in place within a district or a company that it can catch an error before it gets to the auditor. If an error slips through to the auditor, then you have a different problem. It's probably a bigger problem. We did not have any of those problems. Otherwise, we would be talking about this smaller document, which I'll get into. There would be comments in there. So as a result of all of our testing, all of our inquiry, the time we spent here, the time we spent down in that basement, running up and down the steps, bothering people, asking questions, I get a good workout in there too. We ended up with 2 documents. One is the CAFRA, which is actually a joint venture between my firm and the business office, where they actually present us with the financial records for audit. Our job is to audit them, and because of the accounting requirements, we assemble them and we create them and put them into accounting format that's to be used not only by the board, but people in Trenton and even people on Wall Street who are looking and evaluating at the town of Monroe. Okay, they're looking at certain things. So we kind of put that into usable format. It's also in compliance with the accounting regulations of the Department of Education, which says we are to use governmental accounting standards, which is a nationally recognized organization created by the accounting industry to regulate accounting requirements. There's the Governmental Accounting Standards Board for government agencies, and then there's the Financial Accounting Standards Board for commercial entities and private companies. So basically what I just wanted to do was highlight a couple things in this larger document. And for the record, prior to issuing this report, okay, we had and Dennis will vouch for this, a rather extensive exit conference with myself, my staff, Mr. Gorski and Mr. Ventrello, to discuss the audit prior to issuing it. It's an opportunity to review a draft of the report before it's get released, because a lot of this information in here is actually that of the district. Okay, and then it's also a chance for management, which is them, to refute any comments and/or recommendations that we have. Okay, so basically this document contains a lot of financial information, but I just wanted to highlight some of the stuff that we, are involved heavily in. The first of which is the independent auditor's opinion, which starts on page 8. And basically what it says is, in more technical terms that I describe what we do is, we've audited the financial statements of the governmental funds of this school district, okay? And the business type funds, which is the food service fund and the child care initiative fund. Management, which is Mr. Gorski and his staff, is responsible to prepare and present the financial statements for audit, okay? Our responsibility is to give an opinion on those. They kind of broken this out where they have these paragraphs broken out where it makes a little more sense than it used to. They used to have this whole opinion bunched into one document and you could never really comprehend it. Now they're breaking it out. So management presents us with the financials. Our responsibility is to audit them. And in the middle of page 10 is where we give our opinion. And the opinion is that the financial statements referred to above present fairly in all material respects the respective financial position of the governmental activities, business activities, and each major fund and aggregate remaining funds of the Board of Education for the year ended June 30th of 2014. That 50 or 60 word paragraph there is a result of many, many hours on our part, however, a lot more hours internally of the payroll department, the accounts payable department. It involves all the administrators who are responsible for requisitioning goods and services, including not only people on the education side, but people on the construction side, like a Jerry Tagg. We were happy with the results from our testing as to some of the physical plant improvements that are done and repairs and all that. That is quite well monitored in terms of getting the best pricing. We're required to. I mean, we can't just go out and hire. We have a bid threshold of $36,000 here, so any project greater than $36,000 needs to be bid unless it's available through one of the buying co-ops or through the state contract method. Otherwise, it has to go to bid. We're in compliance with that, as I've stated. So we have what's called an unmodified opinion. It used to be called a unqualified, and then it was a clean opinion, okay, but now it's called unmodified. It all means the same thing. It's unmodified because there's no deviations from what it should be, okay? It's all presented fairly It's all in this document here, presented, hopefully not too confusing, not too detailed, but just enough to get a flavor for how a school district operates and how this particular district ended up during the fiscal year. There's other information in here that is actually included in the management discussion and analysis. Thanks to Enron, we're required to add these 10 pages of information, and but they do have information about the operation of the district. Some of it's a tad overkill. We're required to convert your basic financial statements to that of a corporate model. We add in depreciation and accruals for sick pay and accruals for interest, which your basic financials don't really have that. And we'll get to that as well. The other, and again, there's a financial statement in here on page 25, which does that conversion to look like more of a corporate model. I don't spend a lot of time on it because a government entity can't really be a corporation. I mean, you could take a business-like approach, but it can't be a corporation. We're not here to measure profit or to produce profit for our shareholders. We're here to provide a service.
Can I ask you a question?
Yes?
You mentioned Enron. Does Sarbanes-Oxley apply to?
No, it doesn't apply to government entities. It's shareholder-based, okay? And although maybe all your taxpayers are, in effect, shareholders, that's based on providing shareholders information that are in accordance with the Securities and Exchange Commission, which I don't do any of that work, thank God. Okay, the other page I want to go to within this document is, and prior to getting to the bigger fund, is Exhibit B5, which is page 32. You're running two types of business entities within this district. One is the food service fund, which has revenues of around $2.4 million and expenses for about the same. And, you know, you had a $46,000 so-called profit, except I look at that as a break-even situation. You've met the requirement, you've provided meals for the kids, and you made a few bucks, but however, in the end, you know, another year you could have a little bit of a loss, okay? So you do have some fund balance that's accumulated there, but for the record, that fund balance can only be used in this food service fund. It cannot be transferred to the general fund for tax relief. That's specific to food service because it's heavily government funded, and they don't really want you profiting off of that. The other fund is the Child Care Initiative, which in the prior year had experienced probably what would be called a startup type of a loss. It has, you know, $390,000 of revenue, $316,000 of operating expenses, and it ended up with a $75,000 profit, which further reduced its deficit position from a deficit of $215,000 to $139,000. So in time, that hopefully will, and I believe it will, turn around, but right now that's where it stands as of June 30th of 14, which is really what I'm actually engaged to opinion on. That after this exhibit here on page 35, starting with 33, there's notes to financial the statement that describe the accounting requirements that school districts are required to follow. Probably every school district in the country, with the exception of one state that doesn't mandate GASB, follows the same. If you were to pull the city of San Diego or Philadelphia or Peoria, they would have the same type of financial statement. And basically, all it describes is the various accounting mechanisms and various accounting requirements that we have to follow in the district. It's exciting reading for a lot of people, but it, you know, your bottom line here is that you have followed the accounting and auditing requirements of the profession, as well as the State Department of Education's requirements for various items. It's a lot of information. It's a lot to go through in one night. I want to get you to page 75, and if you turn the document sideways. You're typing on this?
Yes.
Really?
No.
The general fund is the main operating fund of the district. And obviously you have a budget that goes through a rather extensive preparation process. And again, that's also a year-round process, as we know, but we're not involved in that. I just know that in the districts I work in, the budget is a year-round function. And basically you have, your revenues. If you look at the actual column, you'll see that's pretty much, you seem to have met obviously, your tax levy. You've met that requirement. You have tuition revenue from Jamesburg. You have transportation fees also from Jamesburg. You have miscellaneous revenues. Then below that, you have your state aids. Okay, and there's a couple state aids at the bottom there. They're called on-behalf payments, $1.6 million, $2.6 million, and $2.9 million. Those are funds that are paid by the Department of Education on behalf of the district to the Division of Pension and Treasury. They don't go through our books, but it's there as an information piece to show the district, okay, that, look, it's not only costing you, $94 million, there's also an additional $6 million that is paid on your behalf, on behalf of your employees, on behalf of the district, to the pension board, okay? It's not mythical revenue, those are real numbers, okay, but they just don't come through our books. We have the revenue, and further back in the document, we also show the expense. It's basically a wash, but it's for information purposes. It lets you know, it grosses up, like the real cost of the district runs about $6 million more than what goes through the books. So you have your various budget to actual. You have no over expenditures, which is desired and a good thing. And if we could get to page 85, we are showing on page 85 that we started the fiscal year with $10,963,000. And as a result of our operations, we experienced we don't call it a loss, it's called a excess of expenditures over revenues of $212,000. Okay, and down below you'll see on the page to the right, underneath the actual column, recapitulation of fund balance. Okay, it's not that we have $10,750,000 free and clear. It's actually broken down into components. $25,000 is encumbrances. Reserve for excess surplus, which was the result of the 2013-14 school year, that will be earmarked for the 15-16 school year, is $3.8 million. Our capital reserve, which is de minimis, is $2,000. Our excess surplus, that was a result of the 12-13 fiscal year, that's a mandatory revenue item in the 14-15 school year, which we're in, is $4.9 million. And the 2% amount that we're allowed to keep, otherwise previously known as the free balance, is $1.8 million. Okay, so there's $10,750,000, but probably $8 million of it, Mike, approximately is spoken for. Okay, so our free balance is really about $1.8 million. And we keep that, that's the statutory maximum we're allowed to keep. It can be lower. If you don't have it, it could be lower. But if that was lower, then you wouldn't have the excess surplus either. So as a result of our operations here, we end up the year at $10,750,000. The rest of the book has a lot of statistical information about the operation of the district. It has statistical information about the town, rateable information, debt capacity of the district, allocated debt from the county, allocated debt from the municipality itself. All that information is contained in the back section here. It has information about your largest taxpayers. It's pretty amazing that Costco has a $150 million rateable here, a warehouse. So.
Tell me what page you're on, please.
That is page 110.
And just, does the public have any copy of this at all?
Madam, I was going to address that afterwards. It would be cost inefficient to put out the copy of this very comprehensive annual financial report. But when I was going to say a few words later, I was going to suggest that if any members of the public would like either the comprehensive annual financial report or the smaller management report on administrative findings, contact me and I'll be happy to email you either one. Or both.
So we're required to present our top 10 taxpayers. Again, that's all unaudited. We merely assemble this together from information provided by the tax assessor. And again, people on Wall Street look at this information. If you're ever going out for financings or if the town is looking to get rated. And other statistical information that is quite voluminous, but it all points towards telling someone about the school district without actually having to come here and look around, it does provide a lot of information. And that is the sort of the end of my presentation on the thicker of the two documents. Again, inside this document is an opinion that we would not have gotten to had we not gotten successful results from our audit testing. The other document is the thinner of the two. Actually has my firm's letterhead on it, is my presentation to the board. In some districts, they actually produce this document. Most districts aren't capable of doing it, but because you really have to know what you're doing, but you have to be in it every day, you know, to know all the technicalities. This other document talks about the compliance with what we had talked about previously, was with bill paying requirements, with public contracts requirements, with payroll requirements, payroll withholding requirements, grant requirements, purchasing laws, the food service. Everything that I verbalized is sort of written in this document here. And there is, in order for something to become a comment with a recommendation, it would have to be something that would rise to the level where it was a problem within the whole bill paying or payroll cycle, the whole process of that. But again, we did not have that. That hasn't happened. The staff here does a pretty good job in processing the purchasing as well as payroll. So, and I do want to thank them. They do work very hard, and they are concerned during the audit process that they're doing correctly. And you have a pretty experienced payroll department, which keeps things moving along, and it also helps the audit move along. But every now and then we will get a new employee, our employee, who will say, okay, go do the payroll, and they do a quite extensive review of it. So there's other information here about your meals that were served. There's information in here about how the 2% calculation works. 2% calculation is based on your expenditures, and that's what you're allowed to keep. That is actually on page 18 and 19. And it's also filed electronically. I mean, we do this document, but there's also been an electronic version of this filed through the state, through what's called the ODSUM, and that's the information they use. They download that into the budget document, and they rely on that for comparative information and for statistical information. That's like a key document that has been filed. So, and again, in the end, there's no recommendations, and we have an unmodified, clean opinion. And I think Michael wants to address some.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stankiewicz, to you and your firm for all the extensive testing and work that you've done. We very much appreciate your cooperation throughout the year, always being there if we have any need to raise an issue about anything, and your cooperation is always appreciated. We're not here tonight to talk about the proficiency in accounting or auditing. We have much more pressing issues to get to, but if you'd indulge me, I'd just like to take a few brief minutes and go through some of the highlights of the CAFR briefly, to highlight some of the more significant issues that occurred during the year financially. Again, this is called the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. If anybody wishes, send me an email and I could send you this in PDF format. It's a very voluminous document. It's very hard to read, even though the state has tried to simplify it, I'll admit, but I'll be happy to answer any questions or anything you may have. And this is called the Management's Report on Administrative Findings. I could send you that also as a PDF or both. This document is prepared by management, with the exception of the auditor's independent report on pages 9 through 11. And in this independent auditor's report, as Mr. Stankiewicz has said, he has offered an opinion that the financial statements are in compliance with generally accepted accounting standards, are reliable, and are free from material misstatement. On page 12 is the management discussion and analysis letter that's been required since Enron, as Mr. Stankiewicz pointed out. Some of the important fiscal highlights for the year are as follows. Number one, for the 13-14 school year, state aid was flat. $2,637,528 in general fund state aid, which was frozen from the prior year, despite the district's requirement to educate many additional students. The amount was further reduced by $163,000 for mandatory withholding for debt service on SDA funding. In response to the fact that only 2% of revenues required to support the 13-14 school budget come from state aid, a direct consequence of the insufficient and inequitable state aid funding, district administration drafted legislation known as S-2307 and A-3478, which was supported by Senator Linda Greenstein and State Assemblyman Wayne D'Angelo and Dan Benson. These legislations provide the elimination of the growth limit for budgets whose population consists of greater than 1/3 senior citizens age 65 years or older. Out of respect for the senior population in town, the state should remove the growth limit and afford more state aid. This year it would have given us $4.7 million of additional aid. Those bills died in the last legislative session, but they've been reintroduced as S-272 and A-1500, and we're going to continue to push and do everything we can for those items. This year we used $3.5 million of unexpended bond proceeds, which we applied against the debt service tax levy to reduce taxes. This $3.5 million came from surplus from the construction of the school, which was done on time and about $8 million under budget. This just about fully extinguishes the bond money. In addition to that, and living within the very constrictive 2% tax levy cap, we replaced the Marasco Center roof for a cost of $505,000. That's very difficult for districts to do within their operating budgets, but we accomplished that and we've been doing it every year. The district has recognized savings exceeding $1 million since entering into a cooperative purchasing management program since May of 2011. The district has saved $3,382,981 in health insurance costs by negotiating out of a direct claims-based coverage plan and into a prospective-based coverage plan, which better serves our population of staff as they are more senior in demographic age. And we very aggressively negotiate premiums with carriers. We went to war with the insurance company this year. We saved $3.4 million. That's documented savings for the district and the taxpayers. We've put into the budget about $350,000 of costs to upgrade security, establish communication with administrators, bus drivers, police, and the municipality. We're in compliance with S-1701 accounting regulation. We entered into a rental lease agreement for 3,780 square feet of commercial leasing space for special services, and that saves about $11,254 per month compared to the prior portable classroom unit rental. And management was faced with turning around the MECA program, which had an unprofitable first year and was very unpopular with a lot of residents. What we did to fortify that segment was to come up with an early childhood enrichment program, which is an extremely profitable segment, and we're very proud to say that for this year ended June 30, 2014, MECA has turned around and has a profit of over $75,000. In addition to that, it's been paying the loan back $5,000 every month, and that loan is now reduced to $274,029. There's a pie chart in the CAFR that's very interesting. I hope if you wish to see it. It shows the revenues, where the sources come from, and all the expenditures by category and where they come, where the money went to. Most of which, 60% and greater, went on instruction.
What page was that, Mr. President?
That's on page 18. 18 of the larger document, the comprehensive audit report. As Mr. Stankiewicz noted, accounting requirements are such that accountants have to footnote a lot of transactions that the figurative information doesn't do justice to. One of them here that's most noteworthy on page 73 is the tuition receivable from Jamesburg. As we mentioned a meeting ago, or 2 meetings ago, we're very pleased to have come to a settlement with Jamesburg on the tuition arrearage issue. And starting in the 15-16 budget, which we are beginning preparation of now, Jamesburg will be essentially overpaying tuition each month based on the higher 14-15 tuition rate from the preceding year. That money at the end of the year will be allocated toward the arrearage, and we expect it to pay back the $949,111 arrearage within 5 to 7 years. The district currently has, in outstanding general obligation bonds and capital leases, $145,527,000. That's on page 112. That number decreases every year. And we have additional borrowing capacity, if we had to go to referendum, of approximately $128 million. That's based on ratables in the township. The unemployment rate in Monroe dropped from last year of 10.2% to 8.7%. And for the last 5 years, the percentage change in cost per pupil spending is as follows: an increase of less than 1%, a decrease of less than 1%, an increase of less than 1%, 1%, and 2%. That shows that money is being very efficiently spent and handling the very increasing numbers of hundreds of students each year. One final note, with an organization with $115 million of annual revenues, many people, if they went to visit that establishment, would ask, what building is that accounting and legal department in, or what floor? If you come to 423 Buccaloo Avenue and you walk down the hall and make a right, we occupy one wing of the building, and about $115 million is handled by or accounted by 8 very dedicated people, supervised by Laura Allen. For many years, we've now had very clean audits. We've had perfect scores on NJ CUSAC, and we're subject to regulation by many federal and state regulatory agencies, and we've come up very clean on all of those instances. We want to be transparent. We're here to serve you. And we thank you for the opportunity, and I would like to thank the superintendent and the board for the resources to do so effectively.
Okay, I believe there's a motion that needs to be made. Sorry. Mr. Prezioso?
As Chairman of the Finance Committee, it is recommended that the members of the Board of Education accept and approve the comprehensive annual financial report and the auditor's management report on administrative findings, financial compliance, and performance, and hereby approve and authorize the submission of required corrective action plan to the county office indicating that there are no recommendations for fiscal year ending June 30th, 2014.
Second by Mr. Braverman. Is there any comments or questions by any member of the Board of Education? Ms. Arminio?
Just a couple questions about the food service and the child care. Any surplus out of the food service? I'm Mr. Stankiewicz, is that how you say your name? I'm sorry. Okay. That goes back into the food service because we have a lot of funding coming from the federal government, is that
Right,
what you
it has
said?
to stay within the fund.
Right, so whatever that money is used for, it would be within that department?
Correct.
Okay, and the MECA and the child care initiative, it says the expenses are about revenues exceed expenses, $75,000. Where can that money be used?
I'm sorry?
On page 19.
Right, I'm looking at it, yes.
The $75,000 exceeded expenses, where can that money be used, or
Well,
to what purpose?
that
can
money's been used this particular year to recoup the cumulative loss that has occurred.
All of it?
Yeah.
Okay.
There's a net deficit of $139,000 in that fund. You can't really do anything else with that fund until it becomes solvent, okay?
Okay, so net deficit of 130, is that anywhere on here?
It's on page, I'm looking at page 32.
Okay.
Which is the financial statement. You're looking at the page where it just verbalizes some information.
Right.
Page 32 is where the actual financial statement is.
And then, okay, so I'm looking at change in net position, which says 75,000, and where is when you say reduced it, you said 100 and...
Yeah, look at the very bottom of the page.
Oh, the 139,744?
Yes, it's in brackets because it's in the negative. The previous year, it was 215,000 in the negative, okay? And to be truthful, you really, can't do anything with that. With any profits that are earned, need to restore you back to a positive position there. And then from there, you can deal with what you need to deal with.
So we can say it's profitable, but it's not really finished its obligation to pay back. Is that the loan?
That's a fair characterization, yes.
Okay.
Mr. Prezioso?
What was the surplus? this year?
Or which fund?
The budget from last year to this year?
Here.
Well, let's see, we're looking at page
85.
85. Well, let's see, we didn't generate, we had $102 million of expenses and $102,400,000 of revenues. Actually, the operation lost $212,000, okay? We started the fiscal year with $10,963,000 and ended at $10,750,000. So you could say we got back to square one. I mean, $212,000 is not a lot of money on $105 million, okay? So yeah, we're fortunate that we got back to square one. But, you know, you don't know what the future obviously will bring. If you'd be happy to get back to square one, I personally can't predict that, and quite frankly, that's not the function of the audit. But yeah, we're at $10,750,000, and of which I indicated about 8.2 is already spoken for.
Thank you.
Madam?
Yes.
To elaborate on that answer, last year, the excess surplus was just under $5 million. That recycles 2 years later as a mandatory requirement to the budget to reduce what you otherwise would have to raise in taxes. That number dropped by about $1,100,000 in the 13-14 school year for use in the 15-16 budget. So in layman's terms, that's going to restrict the 15-16 budget by about $1 million compared to the preceding year.
That's what I wanted the rest of the board to hear.
Anyone else have
Thank
any?
you, Jerry, that was...
No problem, Anthony.
Mr. Rothstein?
I was on the Finance Committee meeting the other night, and we obviously got into this a lot more detailed, probably close to 2 hours, so all my questions were answered. But the one thing that I did learn a lot is that the dedication of our staff here, with Mr. Gorski heading it, is phenomenal. I didn't realize, and Mr. Stankiewicz had mentioned it, that not all boards have the expertise that we have. It's not uncommon to have a former teacher as a business administrator. So we are very, very fortunate to have Mr. Gorski at the helm, and it shows in this unmodified report that has come through. And I just want to thank the Mr. Gorski's department for their hard work, because there's a lot of information here, and it's like just when they're done, it's time to start again. And it's pretty amazing the amount of work that goes into this. So I would really like to thank them. And this is quite an accomplishment to have these unmodified reports every time. So I thank you.
Thank you, Tom. Yep.
Anyone else? Okay, at this time, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Yes. Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, motion passes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then we can move on with our agenda. Number 8, the public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak to the agenda, please come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record. Okay, seeing no one, we will go to the approval of the minutes for the Public Board of Education meeting of September 23rd, 2014. Need a motion and a second? Mr. Chiarella?
Second.
Second by Mr. Kaufman. Any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, the approval of the minutes for the closed session meeting of September 23rd, 2014.
So moved.
Mr. Chiarella, second by Mr. Rothstein. Any additions or corrections? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Or abstentions? And that has passed. At this time, we'll go to committee reports. Are there any committees that need to report this evening? Mr. Kaufman?
Sure. We had a curriculum meeting this evening. We discussed the following topics. Under curriculum documents, we reviewed the modern music elective for grade 8, multimedia for grade 7, fundamentals of literacy for grade 11, and dynamics of algebra. Additionally, we heard a proposal by Greg Beyer for a debate club And I think some of the members of the committee were pretty shocked that we don't already have a debate club, but apparently we don't have a debate club. So we're going to be looking to put that in for next year. It'll be free for the first year, as everybody knows, and then we'll reevaluate it at the end of the cycle to see how well it does. The debate club really for that first year will be an internal debate where I guess the groups will debate with each other. Hopefully we'll be able to spawn some future litigators out of that. It's always a good thing. The world needs more litigators, right? Additionally, we spoke about the Spanish ebook revision and connected math for grade 6. We're going to be bringing something before the Finance Committee shortly for a request for some shekels for the new connected math grade 6 program, so we'll talk about it when it comes before the board. Did you want to, Dory, do you want to just talk about it briefly, or we'll just wait for the committee meeting? Your call. Okay, wait for the committee meeting. We also spoke a couple of minutes about the standards-based report card. There's going to be a committee that formed to talk about that for the lower elementary kids. I forgot what grades, K through 3? K to 3. We also discussed an ice hockey benefit that's coming up. As was mentioned earlier, Mickey was on WFAN, and there was a discussion about hosting a benefit, I think February 3rd, 2nd, 7th, sorry. So we're going to, I think Mike and staff is still reviewing the insurance to make sure we're all covered on that, and I think we'll talk about moving forward on that. The other issue that came up, and I wanted to let the members of the committee know, was it was brought to my attention a few weeks ago that a staff member had shared or demonstrated a website in front of her students, and they were, I forgot what grade, but it's the elementary level. And the content of the website was, I guess, can best be classified as morbid without going too deep. So there was an investigation done. The administration took ownership of that. But as a result of that, we're going to ask the administrators to put a maker-checker program in place. Certain websites that we use in the schools are pretty safe. They're educationally based, and you can feel very confident that the material there has been vetted well. Other things like maybe YouTube or something that's basically wide open for any use really should have second eyes on when being used for education. It shouldn't be just the teacher that says, oh, this is appropriate material to show to students. I think we really need to have a process in place to make sure that we can track the request to use the website and also track the approval so that somebody can say, yes, I think it's a good website, and so-and-so said it's a good website, and they vetted it, and we have a paper trail. So I've asked Dory and the administration to lead the effort in that, and if you could get back to us at the next meeting to give us an update on what your implementation plan is and when you expect it to go live. If anybody has any questions, shoot. If not, that's all I got.
Any other committees? Mr. Gorski, you want to give a Buildings and Grounds update?
Yes, on behalf of Amy Antelis, Chairperson of Building Grounds Transportation, there was a committee meeting on November 10th, 2014. Number one, and the most prominent item on the agenda, was the ad hoc committee recommendation for redistricting and attendance zones. Administration provided a handout titled Review of Recommendation for Redistricting Attendance Zones. This document provided a summary of the work by the ad hoc committee, a review of demographic, which is enrollment, and redistricting feasibility study data, and offered a recommendation from administration to effectively rebalance class sizes by utilizing unused classrooms. After much discussion amongst committee members, it was recommended that administration put forth resolutions to proceed with a redistricting study that would receive full board endorsement and authorization to proceed no later than April 1st, 2015, and to update the enrollment report from the numbers in the October 15th ASSA report. Second agenda item, grant acceptance for Applegarth fire panel upgrades. Mr. Tague and I aggressively pursued a grant from the New Jersey School Boards Association Insurance Group, Eric North Safety Grant Program. We received a grant for $48,906, which will be used to upgrade the fire alarms panel at Applegate School and some fire alarm equipment at Brookside School. Number 3 on the agenda, Oak Tree Garden Mural. Administration reviewed a request from Oak Tree School teaching staff to paint an art mural on the backside of the trash and recycling dumpster wall, which sits adjacent to the school community garden. The mural would be part of a grant application that teachers are pursuing. The committee endorsed proceeding with the mural. However, in lieu of painting directly on the brick surface, removable panels were recommended by the superintendent to be used so that the mural can be better maintained and be a less permanent fixture. Number 4, baseball scoreboard donation. Administrative noted that the Diamond Club has offered to pay for a new scoreboard, including installation at the varsity baseball stadium. The approximate cost is $14,000. Administration confirmed that there would be no public advertising on the scoreboard. And number 5, lawn care contract renewal recommendation. Administration recommended that the board renew the contract with Pleasant View Landscaping for lawn care services for the 15-16 season. Past performance by Pleasant View has been exceptional. Administration will pursue a 0% increase to the contract base. And finally, classroom trailer status update. Administration confirmed the removal of 8 temporary classroom units at Applegate School and informed the board that after June 30 of 2015, the only remaining trailers in the district at Brookside School will be removed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anyone else? Ms. Arminio?
I just have a question about the report. When we're talking at the ad hoc committee about, or we're proceeding for a redistricting study, when we talk about rebalancing classroom sizes, do we count the student-teacher ratio including or excluding if there's paras or other assistants in the classroom? How is the student-teacher ratio counted?
That student-teacher ratio is 1-to-1. By that I mean is the fact that it's one teacher to the child. So that does not include paras, et cetera.
So if there is a para or an assistant in that, that's a 1-to-1 ratio. Then what I'm asking is if there's a teacher in a classroom and there's 20 kids.
That would be 1-to-20.
1-to-20, right?
That's correct,
and if
Michelle.
there's another if one of those 20 children has an assistant, that's just a 1-to-1. That's not counted.
That's correct. You might have those type of specialized classes, ICR is what they're called, as far as in-class resource, where you have another teacher in there, but that's not throughout the entire day. And obviously, they follow the children is what they do.
So are there any classes with higher numbers that have assistant teachers in them?
No. If you're asking, is that based upon the enrollment that's in that class?
Right.
Have we assigned like an extra para or an assistant to that classroom to help out? The answer is no.
Okay, thank you.
Good question.
Madam, in regard to Ms. Arminio's question, the teacher ratio statistics really represent core classes.
Yes.
Not electives where the numbers could be skewed by a lesser population and so on.
Okay, so the student-teacher ratio is with core classes.
Yes.
That's how it's developed, okay. My other question on the, there's a renewal application for temporary instructional space, those are the 8 trailers, and that is only to June 30th of 2015?
Correct.
So we'll have to re-discuss that in the near future, right? About what we're going to do with those, or is?
The board has acted already, I believe, to remove those trailers as of June 30.
Right.
The capacity and the enrollment in the building will be comfortable without those trailers, and it will eliminate that unnecessary expense.
And I know we're going to discuss it in the resolutions, but there was no price tag on that for the classrooms. Now, how much it's going to cost us between now and June.
Correct.
So
That contract has already been executed. It was a long-term contract by my predecessor, and that will conclude June 30.
So the renewal of this, because it says renewal application.
That's to the county office.
Okay, so it has nothing to do with the change in price.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on committee reports? Then we will go to the superintendent's report. Mr. Ventrello?
Madam President, it's recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve personnel items A through N by consent roll call.
Mr. Braverman?
Second.
Second by Mr. Notstein. Any
Yes, go ahead.
Ms. Arminio?
I'm going to have a question. On our page 7, The yearbook business manager, is that stipend for $24.38 twice? Or is that a stipend that two people will be sharing? I wasn't really clear on that.
One person had already started the position in September, so it was before the 3 months, and then the next person was picking it up at the end of those 3 months. So it's basically the same stipend for those two people.
Okay. And let's see if I have any more.
Personnel
That
items?
is just personnel?
Yes,
Up
through
to,
A through double N.
Okay, and double D, could you explain Odyssey of the Mind, B?
What page are you on, Michelle?
I'm sorry, 9?
nine.
Page 9. That's a club?
I see the double D. Yes, it is. And it's an after-school club. And the Odyssey of the Mind, basically, how can I explain it? It's more like a gifted program is what it is. And it's a new program that we have. It's being implemented, and that's why the pay is accordingly as far as its instruction.
Yes, but what are they doing?
Odyssey of the Mind as a gifted program, I guess, is that it's basically a challenge. It's a talented and gifted program, if I may. And obviously, is that, there's the students are there. Dory, I don't know if you can embellish, but it's basically, it's considered a gifted program is what it is.
Is it academic? Is it
Yes.
arts?
Well, it certainly is challenging like an academic.
It's actually a club that, if you can actually Google it and look it up, because that's what I did to figure out what it was. It's a competition, and the teacher starts with going over problem-solving skills and teaching the students the specific criteria that the club entails, and then the students actually participate in competitions.
With each other?
And other
And other
schools.
And other schools.
Yes. And it's been around for a long time.
But it's an academic-based
Absolutely.
club.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's for
Yes.
gifted children.
is that it, Michelle?
I think that's it on this. And did you fill in those two positions?
Matter of fact, I did, Michelle. If you can go, if everyone can go to,
Page 18 and I believe
let's go to page 18.
31.
You'll see one blank there as far as for a teacher, and the teacher's name is Keith Hudak, and he is a history teacher at the high school. And on page 31, and again, thank you for the heads up, Michelle, is that on, you'll see on page 31 in the middle, Desiree Farrer is a family consumer science teacher.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions by members of the board? Okay, seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes on everything, no on double D, and abstain, yes on everything on double I, but abstain on,
So noted, thank you. Mr. Poi.
yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes to all, recused, double F.
I'm sorry.
Recuse on double F. Thank you. Mr. Zarnewski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella. Yes. Mr. Braverman. Yes. Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, personnel items A through double N passes.
Thank you. We will go to board action items.
Madam President, it is recommended that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education approve board action items A through O.
Mr. Braverman, is there a second?
Second.
Second, Mr. Notstein. Ms. Prezioso, you have a question?
Is this a paid position?
No, it is not.
Any other questions? Seeing none, we'll have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso.
Oh, Ms. Arminio?
Yes, I'm sorry, I had to find it. No, I'm sorry. I'm good, thank you.
Actually, I have a quick question. Will we find out what's going on with G? I read the separation agreement, or can we shed any light onto that separation agreement?
Since it is a personnel item, I'd rather not talk about it at this time.
Mr. Prezioso?
Item K, this is not a cost, correct? This is the first year's for 3 years. Without a cost?
I believe that it's not a cost. They were approved at the last curriculum meeting last month, Mr. Kaufman?
Thank you.
Oh, yeah, these were from last month's. These aren't new. We brought these up.
What's the Zumba club?
It's exactly what it sounds like. It's an athletic club that was They went through the same process, got all the names, they presented a case to Greg Beyer. It's freebie this year, and Greg did actually say, if memory serves, that it's so popular, it's so successful so far, that they may actually be looking to incorporate Zumba in the athletics program in the future. But it's still an eval this year, and we'll see where it ends up next year.
Thank you.
I think if the public received the agendas that you handed out, it's missing the A through.
Yeah, that was rectified. There was initial copying problem.
Thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Okay, roll call.
This is board action items A through O. Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Kolpanowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, board action items A through O passes. And if I may have just one word. Since I volunteered pursuant to a vacancy 3 years ago, it has been my honor to serve the board in the unpaid position of District Affirmative Action Officer. This is a position of great importance within the district, as the Affirmative Action Officer is charged with the responsibility to carry out the board's commitment to provide an instructional and working environment which is free from unlawful harassment and discrimination. I have every confidence that Dr. Dori Alvich, as my replacement, will continue to fully carry out the board's commitment in this regard. Thank you.
Okay. Congratulations, Mrs. Alvich, or Dr. Alvich.
You think?
You're here one day and you've already got more work. Okay, Business Administrators Report, Mr. Gorski.
Madam Board President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through M be approved by consent roll call.
Second.
Mr. Braverman, second by Mr. Notstein. Comments or questions from anyone? Ms. Arminio?
Guys are moving too fast. In are we up to the transfer, Mr. Gorski? Is that in this one?
Yes.
Okay. What is the transfer amount? I think it was the total. I didn't see a total. Do you have a total?
Transfer number 4 reflects normal operating expenditures between account line items, which is permissible by statute without approval by the county and superintendent, as they don't exceed 10% of the advertised line item. There is no total because the tos and the froms, where the money's coming and from and to, offset each other, and it's a zero balance. The only time you would have a balance is if we're getting some external revenue source that we're recognizing in the transfer.
But they were usually within the same department, as I tried to understand it from the paperwork, the backup paperwork.
Quite often, we'd like to do it in the same department. For example, if an unforeseen need for textbooks arises, we would ask the principal to look within their approved budget for other sources of money and to go without something for the rest of the year to offset that cost. In certain areas, it's impractical, and we have to take it from another account. Okay. And one of the items that Mr. Stankiewicz noted with the comprehensive annual financial report is how tight we are to the actual budget with transfers through the year. Our largest line item in here, teacher salaries, only had a net transfer effect of $200,000, which demonstrates very accurate and precise budgeting and adhering to the budget.
Okay. Is the number I also in this on page 52, Learning Sciences International?
Yes.
Okay. Is that a yearly, or is that one time? Is that something we're going to be doing on a yearly basis? And is that contractual?
iObservation is an instructional and leadership improvement system. It collects, manages, and reports longitudinal data from classroom walkthroughs, teacher evaluations, and teacher observations. Teacher growth and leadership practices from professional development differentiated to individual learning needs for every teacher and leader to increase his or her classroom effectiveness each year. The $5,600 amount is being used to add non-teaching staff, nurses, guidance counselors, et cetera, to the system, and it's a one-time setup fee.
Oh, okay, so it's sort of, it's an overview of what's going on, and then it's collecting data for the administration?
Yes, ma'am.
And then do we get reports on that, or
Yes.
does that go to teacher evaluations and things like that?
Yes, exactly, correct.
Okay. And is this new this year?
Yes. It's new for this subgroup of nurses, guidance counselors, CST.
So do you ever pull reports and share those with the boards on things from this? Or is that something we're going to consider?
It's mainly used in the evaluation of these subgroups, nurses, guidance counselors, CST. There's a separate teacher evaluation, principal evaluation system that goes into their reviews.
Okay.
I'm not aware if that's ever shared with the board.
So it's used for the supervisor's purposes, is that it?
It's used for management's purposes to
Okay.
review staff.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Notstein?
Just a quick question with regards to item M. I imagine this is really just kind of a statement. We're not really moving anything because we currently have like $2,000 in that fund. And it's my understanding from Mr. Stankowitz's report that that's actually the money that the state has in the past just come and taken from the districts. Is that an accurate assessment?
That is exactly correct. The capital reserve account is one which the district can transfer money into for specific projects within your 5-year long-range facility plan. This resolution's required annually, and it shows the estimated total cost of the 5-year plan. It's just under $8 million. It also reflects the amount of state grant money that could be estimated for that. Doesn't mean any of these are in process, but it's required resolution. And some of these items we are proceeding with, but it's not being sourced by revenue in the capital reserve account. For example, the internal renovations at the Monroe Township Middle School to provide additional classroom space is coming from the budget, and therefore it's not coming out of capital reserve saving account. But it's still within this venue.
Anyone else? Roll call, please.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Nostine.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman.
Yes.
Mr. Zarneski.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarillo.
Yes.
Mr. Braverman. Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mrs. Cole-Panowicz.
Yes.
Madam Board President, board action items A through M passes. That concludes my report.
Okay, thank you. This time, we'll go to the board president's report, and I want to give an update on the superintendent's search. On Monday, this past November 3rd, a couple Mondays ago, Gwen Thornton from New Jersey School Boards came to Monroe to facilitate a conversation with the community as to the characteristics and the philosophies they would like to see in our next superintendent. Unfortunately, it was not very well attended. So I hope that anyone who didn't get a chance to come that evening to attend that meeting and speak to Gwen was able to fill out the online community input survey that was on our district website, which I believe is no longer available to be utilized for that input. A copy of the ad for a new superintendent has been placed in the following: Newark Star Ledger, the Trenton Times, the Jersey Journal, Staten Island Advance, Express Times, South Jersey Times, NewJersey.com for 30 days with job video, after college, workplacediversity.com, militaryvetjobs.com, and educationamerica.net. In addition to these publications, the ad was placed in all 21 county roundtables. Some colleges and universities such as TCNJ, Seton Hall, University of Massachusetts, Harvard, University of Pennsylvania, Rowan, Stockton, and many others. It was also placed on professional association websites, including New Jersey School Boards Association, Principals and Supervisors Association, and NJASA, which means Association for...
That's the Superintendent's Association.
It was also placed at the New Jersey School Board's workshop in Atlantic City at the end of October when we attended. As of Monday, November 17th, there have been 37 requests for applications for the position. The deadline for receipt of all of the applications is 5:00 p.m. on January 9th, 2015. After all the applications are in, they will be divided into 3 different categories: exceeds criteria, meets criteria, and does not meet criteria. The board members will then have an opportunity to go through every single one of the applications and then decide on how many they wish to interview. So that's the latest update. Since the applications aren't due until January, probably might not be another update in December. And the other thing I have for the board members is board self-evaluation, which we need to complete by the end of the calendar year. And in speaking with Gwen Thornton, who monitors and tallies all of the superintendent evals and the Board of Education self-evaluation for our district, there's plenty of time to do the evaluation. I will be handing out directions to the board members on how to log on to the board self-evaluation, and I'm asking that it be completed by November 30th, since we have a very early December board meeting. The November date will give Gwen enough time to do her part and get it back to us so that we can have a discussion at the December 10th board meeting. And the survey is online at www.njsba.org, and it should not take very long to complete. There are no board members who are conflicted out of this process. Everyone is able to participate, so we should have 10 people participating. And as with the superintendent evaluation, all responses are kept confidential and nobody will have any idea of who said what. And the purpose of this study, and this survey rather, is to identify areas of concern, what we are doing well as a board, what we need help in, and then move forward with any appropriate training that might be necessary. So at this time, is there any questions from the board members? Because if not, I will be handing out the self-evaluation update. Tom?
When we get these applications back from potential candidates, will Gwen have already gone through them?
Yes.
Okay, so the ones that we get are going to be pretty much the qualified ones from her standpoint.
We're going to get them all, but she will have them all divided into, these are the ones that meet expectations, these are the ones that exceed the expectations, and these are the ones that don't exceed expectations. Okay. So we will have access to every application that comes in.
Now, is there any way that we can get them, so instead of just waiting until, like, for example, if somebody sends in a completed app and she looks at it and she says it meets the criteria, is there any way of us looking at them instead of us having to potentially look at 37 all at once? Can we kind of look at them a little early?
I don't believe that's how school boards does it. They wait until they have all the applications. They go through I don't know when they go through all the applications, and then they return them to the Board of Education, and then they're our property.
So nothing will happen basically until after January 9th.
Right. Mr. Zarneski?
If I can probably add part of an answer to your question. Once Gwen and her staff, I think it's about 3 or 4 people, get all the applications in after the deadline, they do sort them out. Gwen will come here with a modified report on each of these candidates that fall into our criteria, and she'll give us a basic rundown so we don't have to sit and pass around each application to 10 different board members. She'll have a brief summary on it, and then we can take it from there as far as where we want to go.
Thank you. Anyone else? Okay, so that concludes my board president's report, and then we will go to other Board of Education business. Is there any other business by any member of the Board of Education that needs to be heard tonight? Mr. Zarneski?
Yeah, I just want to add one thing. I just want to say one thing. December 3rd is the Middlesex County School Board Association meeting at Pierre's in South Brunswick, and any board member here is willing to attend that. We have some pretty good training and information that can be passed out to board members, not just here, but other districts in Middlesex County. That's December 3rd at Pierre's. All you have to do is go online to New Jersey School Board's website under Middlesex County and register.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Okay. Oh, please. After you. Oh, after you. I got one thing and I'll go to you.
Okay. Mr. Kaufman? Okay.
And I'm sorry, I should have made the comment when we were doing the board action for the staff before. Mr. Prezioso, you had
said yes to everybody except one person. Who was that person you said no to? Okay. And maybe I was a little bit,
He abstained.
I think you recused.
He recused. He
oh, I did, for that.
He
but-
recused.
No, he said no to somebody.
No, he recused.
But you said no to one person.
Wait a second, Mr. Gorski?
I believe that Mr. Prezioso abstained based on advice by counsel.
Abstain.
Or he actually recused, I thought.
Yeah, I thought he recused.
He did. Well, I know I did.
I don't know what he,
He either recused or abstained, I know he did.
I thought he said no to a particular
club.
individual.
I have in my notes that he abstained on II Laura Tesler.
Laura Tesler.
And that was the recommendation that was made in advance by council because of
Okay.
litigious
No to
reasons.
the double D.
Thank you. I got that one.
no to double D? No to
Double D, which was a
I
club.
got that too.
I'm
Okay.
good.
Okay. Mr. Chiarella?
Yes, I just wanted to let the board and let everyone know that on Saturday, I attended the Indian Cultural Association of Monroe's Diwali celebration. It was excellent. Had a great time. We have a great community in the Indian community. You know, they value the family values, education, and hard work. But it was really wonderful to see all the presentations and the dances and the kids and everything that their part in their bringing their community to life. So I just wanted to bring that up. If the board members get a chance to attend those, they should do that. Next year they'll have Navratri and then Diwali. But it's educational, but it's also a great experience.
Thank you. Anyone else? Mr. Braverman?
In the past, we have spoken about absorbing the before and after school program to have that income for the Board of Education here, for the district. I was wondering how that's progressing.
Madam, do you want me to take? Pursuant to recommendation by the board, the superintendent, Dennis Ventrillo, and I are planning the in-house structure for a before and after school care program. This will be one of the superintendent goals for the 15-16 school year. And as you may imagine, to do it correctly, it involves the preparation of a business plan. It involves projections of revenue, expense, staffing considerations. Also, what I understand to be the case, this is going to have an educational component to it too, with a curriculum that's going to be not just your basic daycare service. It's going to be somewhat more educational to promote the kids' advancement to the next grades.
Yeah, this will probably bring in probably hundreds of thousands of dollars. I wonder if by December 10th, our next meeting, we can have a timeline as to when to expect how this is going to come off so we're not behind the 8 ball in September.
Yeah, I believe that Dr. Gorman, who had said that we should be getting some input by March. We would have a finalized report by March. It was either Dr. Gorman or Dr. Hamilton. I was at a past meeting, so we can get an update by December to see where they stand.
And you're right, Marvin, because we'd have to be prepared when you think about it, not only as far as facilities, but staff, but also to inform the parents. A lot has to be in place, obviously, before we leave in June.
Okay. Anyone else?
Is there not a contract that we have with the current system? And when is that expiring?
Madam?
Sure.
Currently, we have a rental lease agreement with the Before and After School Care Network to lease our facilities through June 30 of 15.
So we do need to get moving on that if we're thinking about something. Thank you, Mr. Braverman.
Okay. Anyone else? Mr. Kaufman?
Sure. So I guess the board members received a memo hand-delivered about a week or so ago. The document is dated November 13th. And
Mr.
there's some-
Kaufman, if this is what I think you're going to be bringing up a letter, please make sure that you don't use the...
Absolutely, been here. I know.
Okay, I just want it for the whole board, the
with
name
you.
of any person
Yeah.
or position.
Yep.
Okay,
Other than people that are here at this table.
yes.
Okay. So it's been brought to our attention that a board member had a conversation with an employee at a local location. And the contents of this letter are very disturbing to me. Now, I've been on the board for a long time, probably longer than I really should be. And I know the job and what it entails and the realities. And there have been times in the past when people say things that board members have said or board members have done. And a lot of times when it's done and it's accused, it's always anonymous. People kind of hide in the shadows and don't want to come forward. And you kind of take it with a grain of salt. You know, we're up here and you kind of take the good with the bad, and that's the nature of the job, that you can't really avoid it. But this situation, I think, needs to be treated a little bit differently. The issue here is that we have a conversation, and I'll refer to the person here as the employee, and it relates to also the employee's supervisor. As far as I understand from the information here, in the spirit of being transparent, and we all want to be transparent, this occurrence happened on October 25th at a local store, of which I'm not going to name. Ms. Arminio started the conversation with the employee after overhearing a conversation between the employee and the store.
Mr. Kaufman, I just want to say it's the alleged allegation. It's an alleged.
Right. And correct. Okay. In light of the conversation regarding the previous, I'm sorry, Ms. Arminio stated with the conversation with the employee after overhearing her speaking, or the employee speaking to the store employee. After a light conversation regarding the and again, I'm not reading the entire document because it's many, many pages long. After a light conversation regarding a previous business transaction with the employee, you proceeded to give the employee your business card. You then asked how her supervisor was, of which she was quite surprised. You then identified yourself as a board member, which is fine. I mean, we all do that all the time. But then you proceeded to ask questions related to, again, alleged, right, on how that supervisor, or whether he was smart, whether he worked hard, or he knew his stuff. And that right there, if we didn't go any further, that would be questionable to me. You know,
Madam
things like that,
President,
when you, I'll get through and then I'll.
These are allegations that are not substantiated, and I don't think you should be, you can quote whatever the person said, but you can't imply that that's exactly what I said. So I would caution that
Agreed.
we discontinue this unless there's a,
However, yeah.
Well, I don't
ethics
think that
violation.
I don't think anything-
Mr. Kaufman is finished with his comment yet.
Well, it's not his comment. What he's reading are allegations that are not represented as having been confirmed. So I think
The
he's
nature of
giving a
this,
false
the nature why this
impression.
is a little bit different is because in the past, we've had situations where this has occurred. And there are things that have been said in here about what may or may not have been said. But in this particular case, we have a situation where an employee not only was concerned about the conversation, but the employee went to that particular supervisor regarding the nature of the conversation. And it didn't stop there. That employee went also to provide the same information to our House counsel. That's a completely different treating of information as it comes to the board. And as I understand, you were given the opportunity to come before the administration with Kathy and Mike and whoever else, Ms. Smith, to present your perspective of what happened. Again, it was one-sided, but you were given the opportunity to present your say. And from what I understand from this conversation, that not only didn't go well, but if what is said is here is true, making a comment like, you better drop it to our administrators is really bad. And one of the administrators is here and was on the phone. So if you're going to say that didn't happen, then say it. Say you did not say to the administrator, you better drop it.
I don't believe this is an inquiry, and I'm not going to comment on it any further. Thank you.
What happened to being transparent? It either did or didn't happen.
If there's an
The other
allegation
question
that's
I
brought
had,
to the...
again, with the allegations here, and I'm going to get off my soapbox in a second. The other question that raises a level of concern also, again, alleging that it may or may not have happened, is a statement that says, with respect to the hiring practices within this district, right, that we, and I don't know who the we is, are looking to get rid of people who either don't know their stuff or know people in the district. Again, it's all alleged, but it's not. I understand that you were given the opportunity to tell your side of the story, and you didn't do it. I think you probably should, because if some of this is true, even a portion of this is really bad, and there's a lot of ethics violations here. And I respect you for your comment in here about not willing to file charges, but just there's a lot of things that you can and cannot do here. One of the things really is you shouldn't be talking about staff members or making a statement that we are looking to do things, because without going through all the board members here and polling them to find out who the we are, it's just not a good practice. It's not a good face to put in front of everybody else if we're trying to do a good job here. That's all my point is.
Madam President, if I may.
Mr. Poi?
I'm not quite certain what the point of the recent comments was in terms of helping this board. I resent the fact that it was presented in this particular forum. I think if board members want to address the actions or behaviors, alleged or otherwise, of other board members, then it should be done in a forum that is more suitable to that. I greatly resent what has just occurred here. I feel badly for Mrs. Arminio. I know I would not want to be subjected to that. I think it was highly inappropriate, and I want to formally register my complaint that this was allowed to happen at this board meeting. This should have been dealt with in a closed session and if that's not legal, then we have to find a way that it can be dealt with. We've got an attorney, so we need to explore that. But this is something that should not have occurred tonight. That's my opinion.
Mr. Point, Mr. Gorski, myself, Mr. Ventrello, and our attorney spent many days on this. It is not a closed session item. It was something that was sent home to the board, did not speak to any of the board members. I happened to be away at a New Jersey School Board's workshop when this happened. I was called into the office when I came back. It was discussed with me on how to handle this. I asked Mr. Gorski to please call the board member in to speak to somebody, whether it was me and Mr. Gorski, or Mr. Gorski and Mr. Ventrello, or our legal counsel. The request was denied. Nobody came in to speak. We did not get the other side of the story, and this needed to be documented. We asked our attorney, this needed to be documented, and a copy sent home to the board. It is not a closed session item. If anybody needed to bring this up, it had to be brought up in open session. And Mr. Gorski, you might want to add to this, because we tried to figure out any way that this should be a closed session item, and it wasn't.
Well, I'm saddened to hear that, and I still object to what has occurred here. I think out of respect for fellow board members, even though we may disagree with one another, and we may object to the behavior and actions of board members, then I think we should deal with that on a private basis. I know if I have a concern with a fellow board member, I will individually speak with that fellow board member. I don't see the value in making this a public issue as it has been made tonight. I'm not questioning the process that preceded it. What I am questioning, or what I am saying that I strongly object to, is what has occurred this evening.
As board president, I do not have the right to withhold anybody from speaking. Any person, any member of this board has the right to bring anything up. As Mr. Kaufman will attest, I did not know he was bringing this up this evening. This was him. As board president, I have always felt, it was my philosophy, that if there was an issue, we would call a board member in and we would talk to them. Unfortunately, when we tried to call the board member in, the board member would not come in, speak to anybody. So we could only get one side of the story, and it needed to be documented. So it was, I think with counsel and with their advice, we followed the council advice. Mr. Braverman?
I happen to agree with Doug. I think it was poor advice that you got, even if it was an attorney. I think a telephone call would have sufficed. And if it didn't suffice, then I would have had a meeting. But I think the letter right off the bat, I think that did nothing more than antagonize people. I thought it was terrible when I got the letter.
I agree. This is caused more damage than anything that happened in that letter as far as to this board. That in and of itself, in my opinion, is an ethics violation, where individual board members should not be doing anything that's going to damage this board. I would love to know what was the point of Mr. Kaufman bringing this out tonight, because it did not accomplish anything. Secondly, did Mr. Kaufman reach out to Ms. Arminio and ask any of the details? I would have to pretty much guarantee he did not, because the intent of this basically showcase by Mr. Kaufman tonight was nothing more than grandstanding and trying to make another board member look bad. That, to me, is the biggest ethics violation here, and it's a despicable thing that he tried to accomplish tonight, and I am very disappointed in what I formerly thought was a fantastic board member. And it also goes towards our board leadership. I think that Mr. Kaufman should have talked to our board president, as we were all instructed to do. Anytime we bring something out, we should always ask the board president, so that there's no, what they told us as new board members would be a gotcha moment. Well, if this wasn't supposed to be a gotcha moment, I don't know what was. And I'm disgraced at what I saw tonight.
Well, first of all, Mr. Notstein, nobody has to come to me and tell me what they need to say if there's other board business. I don't believe anybody has ever done that in the past if they're bringing something up. Again, we requested somebody to talk on the phone. There was a refusal to talk on the phone. There was a request to have a meeting with whomever this person wanted to have the meeting with. There was a refusal. Our attorney, because I don't do anything without attorney advice, gave us the advice to write this letter. And we did it with the attorney's approval of the letter. Ms. Arenio?
Yes. I would just like to say that I believe that any employee or anyone of the public has a right to make an allegation and has a right to put it in writing. I have no issues with that. My comment is that it is unsubstantiated. The tenor of the allegations are incorrect, and I felt that it wasn't necessary to proceed because there were no ethics violations. If there are ethics violations, by all means, move forward. However, just a common discussion in a retail store, I just won't proceed with any other comments on that. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
Well, this board is here to protect our employees, too.
And I agree that every employee should be protected and every employee has a right. However, one can have an opinion They have a right to their opinion. They don't have a right to the facts if the facts are incorrect.
But we don't know the facts are incorrect
Well,
unless somebody.
I'm not going to get into a contest with someone. The employee had a right to do what they did, and I respect that, but I'm not going to dignify it with a whole dramatic procedure. Thank you.
Mr. Zarneski?
I think, first of all, this could have been all avoided if somebody would have spoke their side in private, which is what I'm hearing from other board members would have liked to have seen. If said person came forward and said, okay, I'll talk to you about this, none of us probably would have heard any of this. This would have been handled internally by our superintendent, by our board president, and by legal counsel, by the 3 people there and yourself and possibly this other individual. By not doing so and not taking any further actions to defend, this is what happens sometimes when it gets brought out and other board members want answers. As far as ethics violations, from what I can see and what I saw in this letter, it's possibly there. You're representing yourself in a public place. To put the word simply "we" when you're identified yourself as a board member, that is a problem.
Okay. Is there any other Board of Education business?
Any more gotchas?
There's always a gotcha in this board.
I'd like to say something. Maybe that's why some people don't want to go to a meeting in the board office, because this always happens, and it's always against a new member. And this is terrible. It should have been done in private.
Well, Mr. Precioso, I remember some meetings last year when we called you in and you came in and we resolved our issues. We did that many times, and that's the way
We didn't resolve the issues. A lot of times it was used against me, so I don't blame her for not showing up. That's all I got to say.
Okay. Then if there's no further business, we will go to the closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves to go into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of the Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subjects: Brookside principal interviews, harassment, intimidation, or bullying incidents 5 through 9. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public as such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists.
Comment?
Oh, I need a motion a second first.
So moved. Second.
Okay, Mr. Kaufman, Mr. Notstein.
I was going to recommend that. First and a second.
First and second.
No, not me.
Who would like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion.
Okay, and second by Mr. Notstein. Okay, comment?
And I'd like to make this comment now. We are going into executive session to discuss the interviews for the principal position at the Brookside School. Upon legal counsel from Jamesburg, I am going to exclude myself from any interviews conducted by or for a principal by this board, as this is not part of our duties as a board, and I am going to look for an advisory opinion from the SEC, which is the State Ethics Commission, on this. I will be more than happy to sit in on the HIB.
Thank you. Mr. Notstein?
I don't see why Mr. Zanecki would have even been in this, because this is for a Brookside principal. I would have asked for him to be excluded anyway, so thank you.
And I agree.
They wouldn't be on a Brookside.
We've been told not to sit into web interviews, but I feel that our attorney has given us advice that we could be in interviews as long as we don't participate in the interviews, so I will be going in pursuant to our attorney advice. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? And at this time, the board will move into closed session. Okay, at this time, the Board of Education will be back in public session, and I believe Mr. Ventrello has a recommendation.
It is recommended that the Board of Education appoint staff member Antonio Pepe to the position of principal of Brookside Elementary School effective November the 20th, 2014, at an annual salary of $111,086.13, prorated for the remainder of the 214-215 school year. The Board President, the Interim Superintendent of Schools, and the Business Administrator Board Secretary are hereby authorized and directed to take all necessary steps to implement this action by the Board of Education. Dated November 19th, 2014.
So moved. Second.
Mr. Notstein, Mr. Prezioso, any comments or questions? We will have a roll call.
Mr. Prezioso.
Yes.
Mr. Poi.
Yes.
Mr. Notstein.
Yes.
Mr. Kaufman. Thank you. Mr. Zarneski? Recuse. Thank you. Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Mr. Braverman is absent. Ms. Arminio?
Yes.
Mrs. Koloponowicz?
Yes.
Madam Board President, I am pleased to announce that 6 yeas for the resolution, and it passes.
Okay, congratulations, Mr. Pepe, on your appointment as principal of Brookside. And I'm sure Dr. Alvich would be very happy right now. Since we've given her more work, she doesn't have less work over there now. You're welcome. Okay, we will be going to the public forum. Anyone from the public wishing to speak, please come to the microphone and give your name and address for the record.
It's Madeline Ryback. I speak for myself, and I must be clairvoyant.
May I have your address, please?
Sorry, 23 Riviera Drive. I'm a retired New York City teacher, having earned a BS degree in education, an MS degree in special education, and 30 credits past my master's in technology. When I began my career in 1970, I taught in an extremely volatile, racially charged district, but at no time, to my knowledge, was communication by a private individual and CC to school board members blatantly falsified and plagiarized and shared with the public. How can any of us ever feel safe communicating our thoughts privately to our elected officials, not knowing how it can be used in the future? The word ethics appears to be used by members of this board. I read the Code of Ethics as it applies to all New Jersey school boards, and I suggest this and all future school boards in any town revisit this code frequently. As I reviewed the Code of Ethics, I also reviewed the responsibility of school board members. Whomever the president of the board is now or in the future, please read Roman numeral 2 under the heading Conduct Board Meeting, which states, and I quote, "Keep discussion to point, involvement of all members, maintain democratic procedures, protect minority opinion." Again, protect minority opinion. Ensure fair hearing for all points of view, full discussion of issues, refrain from discussing elements of board deliberations outside board meetings, unquote. And I would like to include, only make public documents and communications that have been verified as authentic, have the approval of the board, as well as the author. We need to be a united community that can trust our representatives, filled with community spirit and respect for each other. This starts at the top. Let's choose a new superintendent that has a strong background as an educational leader, has excellent communication and people skills, is a team player, respects differences of opinion, understands the fiscal needs of the community, and willing to reach out to the community to make our school system whole. I hope the future school board and the one after that, and so on, will work together, present themselves in a respectable, ethical, transparent, cooperative way. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public?
Stephen Ryback, 23 Riviera Drive. I'm going to have to try and follow that one. My purpose in speaking today is to try to help heal a serious situation, not make it worse. However, I do feel compelled to speak on a few of the issues. When unverified and/or plagiarized documents appear on campaign sites of BOE candidates, they send a very wrong message to our community that must be expeditiously addressed and corrected. We can't allow a double standard to be set for students and BOE candidates or members. What do we tell students who have received serious consequences for falsifying or plagiarizing a document? It's not right for you, but it's acceptable for BOE campaigns. The email I'm speaking about, while it had my name as the writer, was not written by me. It was altered, plagiarized by someone, and placed on a campaign Facebook page, clearly without proper verification. This must be addressed, corrected, and future actions clearly reinforced or established to diminish any reoccurrence in upcoming campaigns. However, not taking any action here sends another message that will diminish the public trust in this Board of Education. How can you expect the public to believe what you say going forward if there is no response by you on this matter? We must reassure our residents that our standards are high, and we will never take that for granted. I'm excited to be joining you this January, and one of my goals is to assist in making it a more cohesive, supportive unit where differences of opinion do not become personal differences. We must all work together for our students, staff members, and community. It's my sincere hope that we all participate in this effort. Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else from the public wishing to speak?
Good evening. David Cugini, 5 Ellingham Avenue. I wanted to just ask, as a follow-up to the building committee's meeting from a couple of weeks ago, I wanted to find out if, and I'm sorry for not being able to come to the earlier part of the meeting, this may have been discussed, what was the results of the enrollment data that you were waiting for on 11/13 to help us make more coherent plans? What is the designation, or has that been discussed, of what the designation of the building that was potentially going to be built? At the time of that meeting, it was between possibly a district-wide 5-6, or is it going to be an elementary school? And I wonder if that's progressed at all. What is the plan B if the referendum fails? And then, of course, my question always is, so where is the mayor in all of this? Because I think it's really important that while we need to maintain our individuality with the Board of Education, that the mayor is somehow integrating what's going on with the zoning board and what we're doing here, so that we don't continue to have these same conversations and asking the taxpayers to continue to pay out money so we can build new buildings.
The enrollment data is not available yet. We're in the process of getting that information. So that when we get that, we'll bring it to a board meeting, a future board meeting, give that out in the public and put it on our website. And we are not at the stage yet where we have a referendum. So we haven't even talked about a plan A. So we definitely don't have a plan B. And since we don't have any referendum plan, we haven't even gotten into the stages of talking with our municipal government yet.
Okay. I know that some of this was planned for a quarter-1 vote, and so, but quarter one happens pretty quick around here, so I wasn't sure how much further the conversation went.
It was just about redistricting, and what we had, I think we asked to have another redistricting plan come and with the new data.
Right.
And that, I think, won't be available before January.
Right. Okay, so everything else tabled till then? Okay, thank you.
Just to elaborate on those words by Mrs. Koloponowicz, the Building Grounds Transportation Committee directed administration to update the enrollment study, also known as a demographic study, with the enrollment data that's very recent and relevant as of October 15th, 2014, as reported to the state in the ASSA. Then we were further directed to update the redistricting report using that new data, making sure that all developments and everything are as recent as we can get provisions for from the township. With the last demographic report, all of the information contained about developments and potential developments was furnished by the township as relevant as the report was prepared. Number two, when the committee eventually begins to plan for a referendum, it would certainly involve the municipal figures. The mayor has been involved with school construction projects in the past and was very supportive of this facility being built. And district administration will be as aggressive as possible to get as much state grant and participation in the construction project as possible.
Okay, yeah, no, and I thank you for that. I know that we've been short-shifted on our state funds, and so I recognize we're all trying to make up that difference. But again, continue to build causes a lot of these problems as well, and having that conversation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, we'll close public forum, and our next scheduled Board of Education meeting, Wednesday, December 10th, 2014, 7 o'clock p.m. at the high school. Motion to adjourn, Mr. Kaufman, and second by Mr. Zarneski. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Meeting is adjourned.